Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Johnny Stanton. We have Reginald Perriman and Shaka Williams. We are TSARE. This is the There's Something About Real Estate podcast where we talk all things real estate. And tonight we have with us Mr. Marlon Williams.
Bruh.
Jr.
Marlon Davis.
Davis Jr.
What
My
up?
bad. I mean, you act like I just shot a person. Was that a horrific
We need to
offense?
start over.
My bad. Are you on the mama side? Is that I don't know.
Dad's side. That's how we.
No. we on
But
the
guess
mama
what's about
side.
to guess what's about to happen? You're gonna introduce yourself properly, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
Oh, it's my
okay.
bad.
Marlon Davis with Kingston Property Advisors.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jesus. All right. So what up, though? How we like to get started around here?
What up, though?
What up, though?
And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into property management.
Yes. So I actually got my start with Legacy Park Realty. I started out as an ISA.
That's y'all, ain't it?
I know them.
Yeah. Shout out to Legacy Park. I started out as an ISA, and it opened up a lot of doors to work with investors. So I kind of just rode the wave, right? So if you take real estate and construction, which is my passion, construction, that's what I really like to do. So if you take real estate and construction, they have a baby, property management. That's how I'm able to do both. Help my clients on the buyer, seller side, and then the rehabs and everything like that. And then during the pandemic, when we were all kind of struggling with the tenancy at sufferance thing, I started the squatter removal service.
Okay, because we're gonna talk a lot about that in particular.
Yes.
How to get these people that likes to lay claim to other people's
Cannot
property.
stay.
Yeah, I'm curious
Other
about
property.
this one.
Then they don't want to
ahead,
pay.
Reggie.
They do
And
get
do any of that
Nah,
kind
you
of stuff.
Go ahead, I'm all ears. I'm
You say they do
listening.
get-
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to
very.
see how to get
very.
the squatters out.
Oh, yeah.
So, but we do need a little bit of history because there was a time where squatters did have rights, but then that changed to where squatters
Yeah.
supposedly
Term.
no longer have rights. Squatters'
Term.
rights?
Yeah, no, term.
Squatter.
Squatters. I mean, it makes sense, but where did it come from? Like,
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm glad I
We
got
can
Google
do it.
sitting
It's-
right here.
It's an old English word.
So
meaning
technically,
it's
there
mine.
is no such thing as squatter rights.
okay.
They don't
Anymore.
exist.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Well, it's more like ordinances put into place by
Okay.
urban cities, Detroit, Pontiac, New York, Baltimore,
Chicago,
Philly, stuff you see
yeah.
like Chicago, where you have these risks with the police assuming liability,
Yeah.
right? They don't want another Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin. You know what I'm saying? So places where the liability for the law enforcement to be like, oh no, you can't be here.
Yeah.
If they make that decision and by some miracle, if it's a squatter, walk like a duck, quack like a duck,
Okay.
But in that one situation, if they're wrong,
Yeah.
now they're liable.
Okay.
And,
Alright.
they can get in trouble.
And,
I think
and several years ago, Detroit the police would show up and be like, you got to go to court.
Yep.
So they changed that because squatters, that became a huge problem. And now they're like, okay, you can handle this, or we can assist, right? So that's where the change, and it happened, 6-7 years ago?
Yeah,
I think it was.
2017, I think.
So they used to
Except
have
in the
rights.
city of Detroit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Elijah's question. A squatter, that by definition is a person who unlawfully occupies an uninhabited building or unused land.
I want to add to that.
A settler with no legal title to the land occupied.
They have
Right.
to also forcibly gain entry. So they have to break into the property.
So they trespass.
Yeah.
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Unlawfully.
Unlawfully
So people
occupied.
where they go wrong at, when they try to deal with a squatter, they call them a squatter. They call the
Right.
police, say, "Oh, I have a squatter."
Yep.
Yeah.
The thing that you're supposed to say is, "I have an active breaking and entering." That is what is happening right now. You have a person criminally trespassing
That
on your
makes
property.
sense. That makes sense.
That's just the gist of it. What stops it from being a breaking and entering is there's no one there. There's not, it's an empty residence. Breaking and entering is when someone lives there, right? So it's a criminal trespass.
Okay.
It's still a felony. So technically, they should be getting arrested, versus a police officer coming up to you like, well, it's civil. It's not. It's criminal.
Right.
Yeah, because we ain't about to go home and say something. We got somebody that broke in our house. They
Right.
sitting there now. We got a
They
squatter.
just sitting there,
Nah,
That's a whole different problem. Some people won't even want to call the police. They see that happen.
Nah,
Like
so
that
yeah.
lady where they broke in her house and was having a party while she was out of town.
Yeah.
Man.
And they
No,
was
honestly,
in there.
it works better to not call them. It's sad, but
Yeah.
in certain places, you are probably better off not calling.
Oh, I
the
see
police.
where this going. Like this-
I feel like I gotta get my
No,
lawyer on the phone real fast.
So real estate law. You can't
Yeah.
if I have a client that lives here, like physically lives in Michigan, and
Right.
someone is trespassing on their property,
Right.
they can't stop you from gaining entry to your property. Nobody can stop you, not even a tenant that you have under contract. So there's ways for you legally to get inside your property at all times. You
Right.
can. The best way is filing a what do they call it? A notice. Sorry, a notice, 7-day, 3-day,
Right.
14-day, whatever. So after this notice expires, that's the day that I'm coming to inspect, look around, do what I got to do. Even if you're selling, taking pictures, whatever you got to do.
What about
If
that mail?
Then after that notice denies you entry, that could be a problem. So you can
Right.
then
What about
contact
the
police.
the U.S. mail thing? If they get mail coming to the property, how does
So that falls in establishing tenancy. So that's how squatters who know what they're doing. So some people who are squatters are they're professional squatters.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they are like Reggie when it comes to like real estate. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is their job. This is what they do. They're very.
You can still get them
skilled at
out.
it.
You
So
gotta.
because they not a squatter no more. So now they just changed. So once they start getting mail, they're not a squatter no more.
Not even
But that's
mail.
fraud,
Not
though,
even
ain't
mail. You
They
can
be
beat the
turning-
mail if they put a couch, toothbrush,
Yeah.
couple things hung up in the closet. There's certain things that establishes tendency that shows you've been there.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if they got you. So if they got utilities on legally, but what if they got him on illegally?
That will help you.
That will.
That
All
helps
right.
you in the removal process. So if they do have it, the DTE in their name, the water,
Right.
that looks bad on you.
Yeah.
If you do see, so there's certain things that the police will jump in and assist you.
Right.
If they still keep the point of entry noticeable,
Yeah.
like the broken window or the door that they pried open,
Right.
that will help you. Illegal electrical setups,
Right.
water, anything that doesn't belong will
Right.
help the situation.
So I'm reading something online where it basically talks about like the steps of action that you're supposed to take, giving the squatter trespass warning and contacting authorities. So it's basically saying to try to be civil, try to have a conversation, let them know you're the owner, they're not welcome. And then when it talks about contacting the authorities, it says under Michigan law, trespassers are not considered tenants. You may perform a self-help eviction. So I think that's something that has changed more recently to where that wasn't like a thing. So changing the locks, turning off utilities, removing their personal belongings.
That's where he
And
comes in.
let's make this clear because some
I'm glad you said that.
some landlords, when you have a legal tenant, we still got some landlords that try to do the self-help eviction.
Correct.
And you gotta be careful because some people ain't got shot on both sides of that. So
Yes.
we want to make this clear. If you have a tenant, this don't apply to your tenant that you had a lease with.
That's not paying no more.
And
Or
I'm
a
actually
verbal
glad-
agreement.
I'm actually glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
So I get a lot of people that call me, which is why I do evictions now.
right.
So we do everything tenancy acceptance, right? So evictions, squatter removal. I've helped people with probate situations, land contracts that didn't work out. So anything tenancy acceptance.
Right.
Landlords always call me because they got a guy in the property that's been there for like a year.
Right.
He ain't paying rent. He not answering the phone. He getting violent when he comes. Well, sir, he's your tenant. He's not a squatter.
Okay.
There's no time frame of when, even after the lease.
Right.
So a lot of people, the whole problem is they don't understand like the laws of it, like what is what, who is who, where is where.
Right.
Legally binding contract, written or verbal.
Right.
It's still the person.
Wait, hold on. I gotta stop you. Hold on, man, because this is important. This is why y'all hire somebody that's licensed. Some of y'all got property managers that are not
Say it
licensed.
again.
Hire a property manager that's licensed that know the law. Some of y'all, especially out-of-state investors, they be going to get people that don't know the law, that don't know the rules. Even if they don't have a license, they should at least went to school for it. You know what I'm saying?
But some people, not just licensed, somebody who know what the hell they doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm
licensed
saying.
and know what they're doing, because you got a lot of licensed people that don't know what the hell they doing.
Well,
Right.
in Michigan, in order to own a property management company, you need to be brokered.
Right,
So brokered, and if you're going to deal with certain stuff like this, I would say have an attorney.
right,
So, to be completely honest with you, an
Right.
agent, average person, anybody could do what I do. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? It just takes having the right pieces. I would say a lawyer is
Right.
your best friend in these situations.
right.
We got somebody who don't care for those. So why do you feel like?
Nah, so
Don't care about lawyers?
No,
Yeah.
see, here go the
Even
issue.
lawyers have lawyers.
Hold on, here go
Right.
here go the issue.
I like that.
No,
Bars.
listen to this.
Bars.
They
Yeah.
keep saying so. You cannot put a blanket statement. I definitely care about lawyers or attorneys. I'm
didn't
just
say
saying you
who
don't
at
need
all.
attorney
She didn't say
and
you.
title. No, but I know what she was talking about. I know when I'm being shot at. Look, I ain't got it. Look, I know when somebody taking shots at me.
Yeah, no, honestly, I would.
That's not
So
true.
lawyers are very, very important. Lawyers protect everything
In
that we
certain
got going on.
situations, and maybe in his, they might.
Especially in my situation,
Right,
we have a lawyer that I'm partnered with that guides us step by step property. You know,
Right.
when we can go in, when we can't, what we can do, what we can't do.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are certain situations nobody can stop an owner from claiming their property, and
Right.
they're not supposed to be there. So if I have an owner that is gutsy enough to want to go to his property and we're going to claim his property, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
All right, you said that with like no holds bars.
Yeah, no,
All right.
I'm 60 and now.
From where you say Pontiac?
Yeah, Mayweather
Where you,
knows something.
where you from?
He from Pontiac.
You from
Yeah.
Pontiac? You
Yes,
representing, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. I've done 60 squad removal since the pandemic successfully.
Wow.
Right.
That's a lot.
And I've done a lot of evictions, probably like 10 to 20 per month right now.
Damn, he got him out with the mask on and everything.
Well,
It's like-
now I've done so many that
Yeah.
it's no longer a challenge.
Yes.
So when I started this, it was just all of us losing money, and we got really tired of it. We getting tired of the deals being broken because of the squatters,
right.
rent not getting paid. You know, like we were all losing money. So I actually hired a security team to protect me while I went to go confront the squatters, figure out what's going on. That turned into them performing the job very well.
But he like to go on cheaters when oh boy, got
Yeah.
the security and the camera crew.
Oh, you got the camera?
Wait a
too?
minute.
No,
This
no
getting
camera
deep.
crew.
You gotta get
My
the camera
guys
crew.
wear
Oh, yeah,
GoPros,
GoPros,
to
yeah, the
protect.
chest. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
because people might say we hit them or
Yeah,
touched
yeah,
them.
Yeah.
So I
You know they
invested-
got them Ray-Bans now too. That
Yeah,
you can do.
I actually invested into that because somebody called the police and said we beat them up.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wasn't believable. No marks, no nothing.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
guys are the size of linebackers in the NFL. If they touch you, you're gonna notice it. You know.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
But since then, probably like our 5th removal, we have GoPros.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been thinking about buying one of those. Too.
Man, this is getting better as we talk. So I want to ask you, right? Let's hold on. So on the tenant side, you know, of course, you get the bailiff, you go to court and all that, you get your writ. So let's talk about squatters for a minute. So you have a house, you just brought it, it's vacant. The next day you go there and it's a squatter in there, right? What's your first step?
So I want to go back a little bit.
All right.
So the first step before that step should have been registering it vacant immediately.
Right.
Whenever you buy a property, just go for property managers, realtors,
Right.
wholesalers. You don't want your deal messed up. You don't want what you got going on messed up. Register it vacant.
Right.
Problem is, investors hear that inspection word because
Yeah.
it does come with an inspection.
Right.
But it's not like an inspection where they're coming around looking to see what you got to fix and all that. It's just a person coming in, sticking their head in. Okay, it's vacant.
Right.
We're going to register it vacant now. So that's the first part. That's what you want to do. So once you do come and find that person in the house, sit in your car, call the police in the heat,
Right.
watch them get arrested. It's over with.
Right.
And is it still key though that when you make that call, you do want to make sure you call them a trespasser? Because it sounds like the police kind of use semantics as
If
to
you
whether or not they're
use
gonna come or
The
not.
verbiage squatter immediately, it changes the urgency
Yeah.
of the, So if I call the police and I say, yeah, man, I got a squatter in my house, they're like, oh, no, the 100th one this week, and they're going to take their time. You're going to be sitting outside the house for 2.5 hours. If you say I have an active breaking and entering in my property, they'll
I mean, because that's not true. That's actually correct, right? If somebody is
they-
in my house and I didn't authorize, it's
You have an
active breaking and
entering.
entering. Okay.
It's a trespass. Yeah.
They're in there in the refrigerator and everything. They active. Right? Then you get a refrigerator. Can you keep the refrigerator if they break? No, I'm just the police come keep. Well, I got a refrigerator.
And that's the honest to God sauce of how I'm able to do what I do.
Okay.
Nobody ever wants to register the property vacant.
Yeah.
So I tell investors all the time, it's either spend $100 with the city
Yep.
or $2,500 with me.
Yeah. Well, let's make that clear. Every city, the fee is different, and every city has a different process.
Correct.
And
Correct.
different-
In Detroit specifically,
Right.
it's $100.
Now,
Yeah, so check with your local municipality on the fees.
Yes.
But they should be nominal.
But they're not bank breaking at all.
No.
And it takes, you can do it online.
You guys just jump in.
First part is done
Yeah.
online. And what I suggest is if you're in a high risk area,
Right.
when you do it online and you're waiting for your inspection, take a couple pictures. Do a video. If you have an iPhone, the date, time, everything is right there
So
to
what's
prove that it's empty.
some of the cities you've been in? Like
Detroit, Pontiac, Flint, which I'll never
any
go
like
back
All
West
the dangerous
Bloomfield,
areas.
anywhere like that or anything like that?
to. I had
Suburb.
one in West Bloomfield.
Oh, really?
Literally
Okay.
one, and it ended up being a tenant.
Oh,
So technically yes, technically no, because it was a property that was passed down to someone who had nothing to do with it.
okay.
And then when they got there, it was like, oh my God, someone's in my house. And then when I come find out, like we did our digging, he had a verbal agreement with the grandfather, which is a lease. It's a legally binding contract. So she she assumed that.
Okay.
So you get people lying to you saying, "Oh, it's a squatter," but really it was a tenant.
Oh, I get a lot. That's why we start doing evictions.
Okay.
Because I was like, man, all this business coming in,
Yeah.
I got to be able to do something. But the lawyer that I'm partnered with, he specializes in that.
Okay.
And he can actually expedite certain situations.
Right.
Like a squatter if there's a situation where they force you to evict a squatter, there's ways that you can expedite it.
Right.
We specialize in that. It's a 7-day notice. And it's basically the property at risk.
Okay.
So if the property is at risk in any way, that causes for an emergency eviction.
Okay.
What if the condition of the property is not habitable? Like, you're just like, hey, the basement flooded and they in my house. Can he?
There's a
Get that?
lot. That helps you.
Okay.
If the property is not livable, if the conditions are inhumane or
Right.
dangerous, that will help you.
What about weather-wise? Is it any time where you can't do it? Like, say, if it's negative something outside. Like, I mean, besides you just being a good person,
I mean,
or
are you asking like
sympathetic.
morals or?
Yeah, moral. I mean, like,
No,
'cause
it's lawfully.
DT, like
No,
they
they
still
say no.
can't turn your stuff off after a certain period, in the year. I'm guessing because I
No,
ain't
they
had
do.
that.
They do now.
You know how
it's
to
been
do it.
years since I had,
Yeah, they do
like,
now.
They do. I had a tenant call me the other day. She thought her furnace was out. She just needed to pay her
well,
BT.
right now it's not time, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
when they get to a certain temperature,
Nah,
they will do it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying though. That used to
Yeah.
be. I didn't know if that was real or if that
No, it
was
was
a bit.
real, man.
Or
The
some
way I grew up,
judges
trust me,
will
it was
There's too many programs out there for you to not
Yeah.
get help.
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
DHS, you got
But yeah,
all
just
kinds
curious,
of stuff.
like, I mean, because it's really up to y'all discretion if you're gonna put somebody out in a negative 2 degrees. Right?
We're human. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
we are, and obviously the investors, the clients, they're human too.
Yeah.
And then you have some people who are just good people in bad situations, and then you have some people who have nothing to live for. No, we've seen everything. I've seen everything that you could think of doing what I do.
Okay.
What about the people that have a fake lease?
Oh,
That's a good one.
that's my
Yeah.
favorite one.
See, I know.
So that's my favorite one. I get those. Those are what you call a professional squatter.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Right.
But the police, the detectives, they've seen so much of this.
Right.
It doesn't, if the signature or the person on the lease doesn't match the owner
Right.
or the property manager,
Right.
and we don't know who you are. People do that all the time because these are my favorite ones. You got to evict me.
Yeah.
So when I come to the property, I always come alone first, right? Instead of coming with my security and everything, it looks very intimidating.
Right.
They're very intimidating. So I try to come, speak, talk,
Right.
and I feel out the temperature of the person inside the house.
Right.
Some people just off rip. You already know.
Yeah.
There's nothing to talk about.
they
And
know
what
your
I feel
face
bad
now.
about putting them out in the winter.
Get out the car.
You know,
Right.
It just depends on who you're dealing with. It's by case.
Right.
So I'm gonna tell y'all something that's crazy to me. So, and why I wanted to bring him on the show, because he is doing. So it's not just about. So squatters is a big part. The people that's not supposed to be there, but it's also he can get people out that's legally can be there, right? So like I had one. I had one that's like they really were a squatter.
Right.
Yeah.
But they established tenancy.
Yeah, but they established tenancy. Yeah. So, but he was able to get, I ain't gonna lie. For a minute, I'm like, man, I don't think this is gonna work.
Right.
I felt like I was an investor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of highs and lows. Like, everything about to be good. Nah, it ain't. No. But he kept saying like, nah, they're getting out. You know what I mean? The day might have changed like by a day.
One day.
A day, yeah. But which was cool. But even like he had a situation recently with a land contract.
Right.
And I don't want you to go too much into detail about it, but
no, look, this look.
Yeah,
If they want to know the sauce, they got to watch the podcast, right?
Well, hold on. I'm gonna describe the scenario. So there's a land contract with an investor out of the country,
Right.
and so they calling. So they talking to him and they talking to me. And they're explaining it to me, and I'm like, shit, you got a land contract. You got to foreclose on this property.
For forfeiture, right.
Yeah, you're not about to, this is not an eviction. They keep talking like this person is a tenant. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, at that point, once I hear it, because I'm thinking about listing the property.
Right.
Right. So after I hear that it's a land contract, it's nothing to talk about until you get the property back, right?
Right.
So he like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll put a rabbit out of the hat, right? And I'm like, I'm talking to somebody, and I'm like, he a little bit, he in over his head right here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he called me back not even 2 weeks later, and he got this person to agree
Yeah.
to sign their rights over
Right.
and move the hell out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, so...
It took like 4 weeks to do all together. From the time I did the contract with the owners to the time that they like packed and left.
So
Yeah.
did you?
Did you do cash for keys or deed in lieu or something?
No, I don't. So the only time I will ever consider doing the cash for keys if there's children involved.
Right. Okay.
But there was children involved in this one. She had kids over there?
Yeah.
It's not too many of you out there, is it? Like, I haven't heard of
The service is very rare.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
The service is very rare. I haven't met. There's a lot of people now that try to do it.
Yeah.
They're not as good.
The failure rate is probably high.
Very, because they don't.
They don't
it
know
takes.
the law.
So it's a lot more than people think that. Like it's just me showing up with big security guys threatening people, getting them out. That does not work. It's 2023.
Okay, yeah.
So
They think you kick door like you
literally,
just come in
literally,
and
it's so
kick
comical.
door.
Cause you know that's what everybody thinking. Like I can
It's
do what
very-
he doing because I'm already like, man, ain't nobody about to be squatting out of my house. Man.
You get people
I ain't
like
got
that,
time for
and
that,
those are the ones they call me because they like, look, it's either prison,
Yeah.
or like I'm so that's what makes what I do so easy.
Okay.
So the owner, obviously, there's gonna be, if somebody's squatting your stuff, you losing money. There's gonna be an emotional response to that.
Right.
The emotional response is gonna cause an emotional response from the person in the house. They might even have left if
Split second decision cost you.
it's just all so we come in, we have no personal ties to anything, we have no personal ties to this person, the owner, so it's easier. A lot of the things that we like to do ends in negotiation.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So one of my favorite people, they told me like a successful business transaction, all sides have to win.
Yeah.
So we make it so that it's lucrative for this person to cooperate, leave.
Okay.
I have a lot of things in play now. For doing this for so long now, for every program in every city, DHS, Common Ground, the Lighthouse in every city, everything. So
you help them find housing and
that's dope.
assistance and all of that.
Yes.
He don't just go in necessarily and say, get out and throw the shit out.
No, I give you a choice. I can offer you a lot of help. I can even, at best, the best thing that I've ever been able to do, there's a program through CHS.
Okay.
And they take people in crisis situations. You have to be homeless.
Right.
If you're a squatter, you're homeless.
Right.
If you're a woman with children, you can expedite it. It's an emergency. And I can get your rent paid from 6 months to a year through them.
Right.
So they'll pay people like me or other investors to house people at below market rate.
Okay.
And then once they get their voucher after like the 6 months to a year, now you can charge what the house is worth.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
So there's a lot of
dope,
programs.
Yeah.
And it's sad because there's so much help out there. It's just that people don't know where to get it.
Right.
So I made it my job to, obviously I don't want to go to war over every property. So
Right.
we came in and we are offering help now.
Okay. All right.
All right. So let's do a quick step-by-step run through of the process so we can be very cohesive and linear in this conversation.
This is why I want to say something too. This is why, like, I be having investors. They be having properties in Detroit. I only paid $20,000-$30,000 for it, and they be leaving it vacant for a year, 2 years, and all that. And I'll be like, you got a squatter in there. Oh, I didn't know.
You talking about me?
I ain't been.
No.
Well,
you
one of them.
No,
Right.
actually, that's the biggest. If I could just, I'm so glad you said that because I almost forgot. That is the biggest problem and why everybody in the city is dealing with the problem that they're dealing with.
Right.
So it's also some pushback politically, like from the city of Detroit as well.
Right.
Because you got all these people from all over the globe
Yeah.
buying in Detroit. And they just, it just sits there when they want to make money off of it. They want you to follow the process.
Yeah.
So this is the pushback that you get from the police. They're like, okay, if you want us to get your squatter out, follow the process. Register it vacant. Do everything correct. Pay your taxes.
Right.
And that is how you get their cooperation. If you don't want to hire Marlon, if you want to call Marlon, follow the process. That's really it. But that's their way of. When you see them pop up, it's not just the whole like liability thing. It's also holding the investors accountable.
Which I think is crazy. I mean, I understand some of it, but because I feel like that's my house. But you got if I'm cutting the grass or I'm paying my taxes, then who are you to tell me that I got to do something with the house? Maybe I ain't got around to it. You know what I mean? Like that's just.
I'm saying like
Hazel Park or East Point or anything like that. That is
the Hazel Park is the worst.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What's the process?
Process to do what?
Okay, so give me a scenario because there's many.
Like to remove someone trespassing on your property.
So a squatter, someone who is trespassing, forcibly gain entry in order to occupy the property. That is, so first things first, like what you said, when you confront them, you want to obviously verbally let them know that they're trespassing, give them an opportunity to leave themselves. If that does not work, you contact the police. When you contact the police, you do not want to use the word squatter. You want to say you have an active breaking and entering. From there, and this is the process without me. This is the process that you could do on your own without me. It's very extensive. It takes a while, but you do not need my assistance to do it. So once the police come there, they're going to investigate. They're going to go through the property. They're going to take the person's identification. And there's a couple things that can happen when they're in there. You want or you need to happen. If they can prove that they are a squatter, they still might hit you with but we can't make them leave. But with that, what you want them to do is give them a trespassing ticket. That allows you to do an expedition on the eviction. It makes it go faster.
Okay.
So you want to have all your ducks in a row when you call the police. You want to be able to present where they entered at. You want to have all of your paperwork, everything, the deed, the stamped deed.
Right.
You want to have any property management contracts in play. If you're the property manager and you catch them, you want to have just a time. It's aggressive. You want to have a timeline of everything that you can prove.
Right.
From there, you're going to go to whatever precinct the property's in, whether it's 3rd, 9th, 12th, wherever you are, and you're going to present all of the paperwork to them. Right. You're going to be assigned a detective, and now it's under investigation. Right. My process is a little different.
That's what we was getting to.
My process, I can't give away too much. If you would like to know how it works, obviously you have to book us. You have to book the service.
Okay.
It's well worth it. I've never had a squatter removal go past 30 days.
Okay.
Because you got to understand. So I hear what you were asking, but every scenario is different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So you
because-
can't. It's not a straight up and down process.
So if the
No,
police
never.
get there and they got their bedroom
And it
set,
also depends on, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but it also depends on what officer you deal with too. There's some seasoned people who cannot stand squatters.
Right.
And a lot of people need to notice your local law enforcement and your local firefighters do real estate. They're real estate investors.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fire marshal, the chief, he's a broker.
Right.
You know, a lot of the detectives own property in Detroit and they're real estate
Neighbors, too.
investors.
Some of them might be that might
You
be in the
know,
street.
so it depends on what you might get. A green blue shirt
Yeah.
who don't know what's going. You know, he don't know what's a couple days in. You know, so it really it's so different. Every property is so different. I've never had it go the same out of 60 properties.
Right. So the scenario where they've been squatting, you haven't seen a property in a couple of weeks, but you get there and they got the bedroom set, furniture, utilities on, and all of that. Is the process the exact same or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So now Detroit has a sergeant
Okay.
that's ahead of like a squatter removal department. They do have a squatter unit.
Okay.
Still in the works.
Right.
It used to be a very, very resourceful lady, Sergeant Gilbert, but she's no longer at that position and trying to fill it right now.
Right.
So, but there is a whole department, like, you know, it's really coordinated with the sergeant and the neighborhood police, whoever the neighborhood police officer is.
Okay.
So like the precinct for that area.
What I'm understanding, so speaking with a few eviction attorneys, they're telling me like with the eviction process, they feel like the judges are too lenient with the tenants.
Yes.
And one of the reasons being because they're saying their experience with 36th District Court is completely different than when they go to the suburbs. Suburbs is strictly whatever the lease say and whatever paperwork say. But they're saying they believe some of the judges don't necessarily want to do all these evictions because it looked bad under their name. They don't want to be the name that threw everybody out on the street when it
Kids and
comes
stuff,
to
yeah.
re-elections and that type of thing.
I mean,
But they feel like these are possible voters
yeah,
they putting out.
of
Facts.
course. I will admit, squatter removal and evictions
Right.
are harder in the city of Detroit.
Okay.
If I do if I can compare, if I
Right.
did any of these things in Oakland County,
Right.
it would take a fraction of the time.
Right.
The police officers would probably even remove them themselves.
Right.
It's a big difference.
Right. Do you think
But I feel
that
like,
really?
don't you think that's a double-edged sword though, when you're dealing with like the city and like the crisis that it's in sometimes with like people who have addictions and mental illness and all those things, and then we kind of say, oh, you know, we should police our area or have you know, police respond in a certain type of way or court respond in a certain type of way, but then when it becomes that legal contract that somebody's squatting in my or not paying the lease or we got to do an eviction now,
Right.
so. I don't know. I heard some of the reasons why maybe it may be some push or resistance on just evicting so fast. But they would get accused of some of those things too if they pulled the trigger faster in this
you gotta
area.
think you're in a very it's poverty in Detroit.
Right.
So I'm not gonna say that they give them pushback or they make it harder. They just give the tenant an opportunity to get caught up. And I'm glad you brought that up too,
Right.
because that's the difference between a 7-day notice and a 30-day notice.
Yeah, exactly.
7-day notice is, okay, there's a break in a contract.
Right.
That means that, and it's not just rent either. It could be a person
Yeah.
smoking if you told them no smoking. It could
Right.
be pets in
They
there if you
move
said
more
no pets.
people in and what's on the
Yes.
lease, all of that. Right.
7-day means there's a breach in the contract. 9 out of 10 people are filing that for non-payment.
Right.
So when you're an investor, you kind of like in a rock and a hard place in Detroit when it comes to that. So you have a decision to make when you file for an eviction.
Right.
Am I going to do the 7-day notice or am I going to do 30-day? 30 days, faster. 30-day notice, the wait time to file your summons and complaint is longer,
Right.
but the process is shorter.
Right.
So 30 days is just, I want to claim my property. I don't need an excuse. We live in Michigan.
Right.
I don't need an excuse. I could want to live there.
Right.
You know, I don't want them there. And they'll give them the appropriate time to leave.
I don't want
Yeah,
no
it's
money.
more-
Yeah,
it's
that's
more-
about to say that's
Give
the
me
key.
no money.
It's more
Yeah.
of a demand
Give
for
me money.
possession
Versus
versus a break in the
yes.
contract.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
but if you want the money,
yeah.
that's when you opening that door for them
Yep.
to get time frames
Yeah.
and programs that they got to apply for, and that's what makes it go slow.
Right.
So if it really, once you make the decision, once you figure out that they're a bad tenant or this is going to be a repetitive thing, you just got to let it go.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
You got to let what they owe you go. It was a bad decision. It was a bad, and you know, tenancy selection when you're doing property management is the most important thing. It's not the construction. It's literally the tenant that you're going to have in the house, because this is how you're making your money on your investment.
Right. So I always say, like, it's a fine line between rewarding failure and helping people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like part of our issues in the city versus the suburbs, because if you're too lenient to one party, it creates an imbalance. So it makes people not necessarily respect that I'm a tenant. If I can't pay, we have all these programs you mentioned. I can just go get help, right? And there are so many programs out there. So there's help for the people that need help, but it's so wide open for people that's abusing the system too. And that creates an impact on the market. It makes people that want to invest not want to invest. It backs up the court system. So it has to be some balance made there.
1,000%. So right now they recommend that because, you know, so when I do my job,
Right.
I have an image to uphold. I have to be a bulldog,
Right.
right? So I'm the bulldog. Some police officers, they really, really like me. They love what I do.
Right.
Some of them, you know, we gotta hold them accountable too, because they have a job to do, right?
Right.
So I might have to bark a little bit and, you know, I might have to make some stuff happen.
Right.
Make it more of a priority for them to work.
Right.
In that process, you know, I also explained to them, I'm like, look, man, you see, the reason why Detroit is thriving is because of us, the investors.
Right.
The investors fixing up the properties, getting more taxes. You have 3,000 more police officers now because of all of this motion that we're bringing.
Right.
So in a minute, the investors are going to say, you know what, I'm done with Detroit, because it's
Yeah.
happening right now.
I do agree with
they're
that.
unloading
It's happening
their
right now.
properties
But
left and
what they
right.
recommend that we do is be active at the board meetings, make our voices heard,
Right.
tell them what they can do to make it better for us, you know.
Right.
And a lot of people, it's very unfortunate because a lot of people would just kind of be like, oh, I'm not doing that. But
Yeah,
that's the answer.
and then you got to think the other part of that. A lot of the investors aren't even here, live in the state
No.
to
Or the
attend a
country,
board.
you
Yeah,
know,
or the countries to attend a board meeting, so their input is mute.
If they have
just
representatives and property managers and people who can show up for that. But I think that's a really good point, because a lot of times if I'm selling real estate to an individual who wants to live in a city, and especially in the areas who are not like our traditionally historic grand spaces,
Right.
I do have to point out, well, there is change. If you look throughout the neighborhood, you see less vacancies, you see more homes populated, and as more people come in, buy the properties, invest, fix them up, this area is just going to be more and more reestablished.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't be a sleazeball landlord.
Yeah, but I think that's the issue. They automatically assume that so you don't get the grace that the tenant gets as the investor.
Well, first of all, they assume every landlord is rich.
Right.
Then they assume
Yes.
you're a sleazeball.
One or the other,
Even
right?
if your
Yes.
property's up to code.
Even the tenants, I run into that all the time. And me being a property manager, obviously I work with some owners who are loaded and they're very aggressive and you know, they invest. And I got some people who are just everyday people who are just knowledgeable about real estate. They're getting going, or properties left to them.
Right.
You know, it's bad on both ends. It's bad.
Right.
So you're always gonna get. I hate saying it. I don't like saying it, but you're 9 out of 10 gonna get the short end of the stick as the investor.
Yeah.
I got a bonus question before we wrap it up. So, let's talk about a situation where there's a lease in place with the tenant, but then the tenant decides to sublet the place, and that's against the lease. Shouldn't be doing that. But then that tenant collects the rent from the subtenants, but then does not pay the rents.
The Airbnb.
This is about 30%
Does
of my
not pay
calls.
the rent.
Yeah.
This is about 30% of my calls.
Really?
So yeah, this
Oh, wow.
happens a lot. So it's an eviction. They're not a squatter. So if there's a 1,000 scenarios that you can kind of like a cousin that won't leave,
Yeah,
or
the ex-boyfriend.
whenever that
she
person
left
got
her.
permission to be there and they exceed a certain amount of days, like after 30 days, it's done.
So what
Right.
about
It's
that?
done.
Everybody heard about that Airbnb situation. Was that in
Florida.
Yes.
Florida? When a man sitting outside his house?
Oh no, yeah, you talking about that
Yes,
one?
if you do Airbnbs, you should not offer anybody an option to
Well, no,
rent it
he
out for 30
didn't.
days.
He
or more.
rented it to somebody else who didn't pay rent, and they ended up renting it out as an Airbnb. So, and they're collecting the funds from the Airbnb and still not paying the dude who owns the property.
Oh, I
He's
haven't
sleeping
heard
outside in a
this one. I haven't
camper.
heard this one.
Yeah.
There was a lady that I was desperately trying to get in touch with. I really wanted to do hers for free.
Yeah,
She had a squatter living in her house with her.
I heard about that.
Oh,
one.
yeah.
They were, yeah.
That
I
was-
wanted
what was that?
this one. I wanted to take this one.
Yeah, that was,
But I think there was like an attorney or something helping her. But I
Yeah.
desperately wanted to do this.
yeah, it was a lady. The squatter was a lady that was living in her house. In the base, was it the base? No, she just lived in her house. Like walked around.
It was
her
a guy upstairs
going
or
to jail.
something.
Oh,
Like
no,
it was
I heard.
something. It was
It's
something crazy.
been a couple. It's one where the lady was renting a room to a lady and she ended up just staying
That's probably the one I'm talking
because she was doing like an Airbnb. She came home and the lady was still there, but she was doing an Airbnb with her primary residence
Yeah.
while she was out on vacation and came back and the lady wouldn't leave.
So have you
And
did
she was-
those Airbnbs yet? I mean, because I know
I had one.
I've been nervous about.
I had one. It was easy though. It was an Airbnb. It was no one that rented it out or stayed there. It was just an Airbnb. They didn't know it and they tried to take it over.
Oh, okay.
So like in that situation, the fact that it was listed, multiple
I
pictures
got
of it being
stories about
empty,
Airbnbs.
you know,
That's a
like,
whole nother show.
that was pretty easy. But
Okay.
but to answer your question, I get those calls all the time. Like, you know, a guy I put out, the tenant will originally leave and his roommate won't leave, or they rented it out to someone before they left and now this person won't leave.
Yeah.
It's not a squatter, it's a tenant now because they got permission from. So the original tenant may have broke their lease because a lot of
Right.
people have that in their lease, no sublease.
Right.
If it's not,
Right.
you got an even bigger problem, you know.
Yeah.
But it's an eviction both ways.
Because you
It's
gotta,
an easy
you
one to
gotta
do, though.
name it. You gotta do the eviction. The complaint is against the individual who's on a lease and other occupants, right? All
Yes, all occupants. I always put all occupants
Right,
for any,
okay.
even if it's a tenant that's been
Right.
all occupants, cousin,
Kids,
brother,
the greasy
friend down the
grandpa.
street, squatter waiting on her to leave.
But I want to
you know.
just answer that. So that was my scenario, right there, which I just described. And but I didn't have to wait for the eviction. So that's
Right.
all I'm saying. So
Okay.
I want
keep
to.
that in
So
mind.
those are actually really easy to do. Because
Okay.
I promise you, if you hire me to do it, the original tenant will come to the house and get that person out for you. Because I use let's just say that they are liable.
Yeah.
The way that we file the eviction,
Right.
we come after the tenant,
Right.
and they're going to assume
They're gonna be-
everything, every dollar that the person is in the house.
Yeah.
Because they're at fault now. So
Right.
every month did it take me to evict this person? I'm not getting paid rent.
Right.
It's going on their tab. And so once they realize
The
it,
water bill,
they,
everything.
they come back like, look, man, you got, you know, a lot of those don't make it to the eviction
Right.
process, but those, once we hit them with the paperwork,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 of them
So
get them
I
out.
had that the subletting issue, but I just rented to those people. They're still there. They're wonderful tenants.
Oh,
they
you-
pay on time. They pay a little
She
early.
pivoted.
You-
They better than the first
Now,
time.
They
listen,
better than the first
that
tenant.
happens.
Yeah.
That happens. I had squatters turn into tenants for some of the
Yeah.
people.
I told them, I said, do
I
not
have had that
allow
happen,
this
yes.
person access to
Hey,
this
let me-
It was opportunity
again.
at first. And they like, all right, we can
He tried to do that with me, but at that point, I'm like, no,
So
he
I
gotta
offered
go.
a sweat equity
No, he gotta get
situation
up outta here.
with the gentleman. He was a contractor.
So I don't believe in the sweat equity no more.
Nah.
No.
Yeah.
So
Sure,
let
no,
me
not
let
there.
me say this. I want to ask this too. So you know, when people buy properties from the tax sale from the county, it says if there's an occupant in a home, you can't treat them like a squatter. You have to go through the eviction process after you receive the deed. So, with that being said, from your understanding of the law, because they say you have to contact legal counsel and go through the eviction process.
Correct.
Even if whether it was the previous owner, a tenant, or a squatter in there, at the time you close. From your standpoint, is that the case? Because the county is just saying whoever's there, we don't know anything about it. All the liability is on the purchaser.
It is.
So, okay.
It is.
All right.
We don't like it, so what I want to start doing, and what I introduced the ideas to a few people who have been buying housing in these situations.
Right.
So it's very unfair for you as a person to buy a home,
Right.
which was a pretty big investment, correct?
Right.
And then have to add on the legal fees to remove this person.
Right.
Technically, the person who sold your house, which is the county, should be handling that. So what we want to start doing is doing like little small civil suits with them and making them keep the property, like, so that should be their job. That they should be making sure that the property is empty,
or at least
Before
until
they
you get the
escrow.
property.
Maybe they had like some escrow fees. Just
They ain't doing it.
Yes, because even
they wouldn't reimburse you.
the problem is, yes, it's because it's always 9 times out of 10 is the person who they took the property from.
Yeah.
That's inside of the house.
Right.
So yeah, you have to evict them at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I like
Always.
that though.
That's
What
why.
about-
That's why they sell it as is.
That's one of
But
the
look, we
ones
had-
where I would negotiate cash for keys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one more question real quick. Regular retail home that's on the market. I'm a landlord. I'm tired. It's a squatter in there, and I just want to sell it. The buyer says, I'm going to buy this property and assume the squatter. And there's no lease in place or trespass or whatever. No lease in place. Do the new owner have the same rights to remove that person? Is it the same process?
Let me ask one question.
good
So
they can
when you
demand
say
permission.
the
So-
same rights, like what do you mean?
So I own the property and I'm like, man, it's a squatter in here. I don't feel like dealing with this. I just want to sell it to Janita. So now I'm transferring all of my responsibility and everything over to her. She's assuming it. Can she come to you and say, hey, I have a squatter situation? Or would a court say, hey, you brought this knowing this person was in there, you technically have to do an eviction?
Correct. So they will. So if you buy it knowing that there's a squatter in it,
Right.
you do have to do an eviction.
All right.
Now,
But you said
what I
just
will
do
say,
demand for possession, that which
She's in 30 days.
you can't. But
demand for possession.
so
So the ideal situation is for me, the seller, to just say, come to you and say, hey, we got this situation. I'm selling it. Let me get the squatter out.
yes,
It'll make it easier.
I'm a great resource for both sides.
Hold on.
Buyers.
I got to question that. How? So if it's a squatter in there, if this is a squatter, not a tenant that's coming over, a holdover tenant, this is an actual squatter. So you still when you buy the house, it's still a
She
squatter.
assumed it. No, she assumed that.
No, you assume it's still a
I
squatter.
assumed it with a squatter in it, but let's be honest.
but you're still a squatter.
As an ISA, I've been learning a lot about how long real estate transactions take to close and you get paid, right?
Right.
So they're going to have a tenancy established by the time you close. They're going to be your tenant.
Right.
Gotcha.
Now,
Yeah,
one more question, though. I know you. If I'm selling it to Janita, and can we both technically go on the paperwork or whatever the process say? I know we want to close this deal. She's willing to assume whatever, but to start the legal paperwork and process to get this person removed, can we just both have our names on it?
So that's a sticky one. So
Okay.
I like to be a great resource for both sides.
Okay.
So if you have an aggressive seller
Right.
that will take care of the cost for me to remove this person so
Right.
that the buyer can assume the property, sure. I'm also a great resource for the buyers to confidently buy
Right.
the house, knowing that I'm about to get them out for them.
Okay.
So if a buyer wants to buy it immediately with the squatter in it and waive everything and just close ASAP
Right.
and hire me once they get the deed, that's what we can do.
Okay.
If you're the seller and you're in the middle of selling it and you get a squatter while you're selling it, or you're saying that the squatter was there already before
Right.
you knew,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that is an eviction situation.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because you were not aggressive when you found the squatter.
Okay.
You're like, oh, I got a squatter.
It's based on time.
Yeah, you have
He's
to,
saying
in
they
order for
prove
you
tenancy,
to,
or
you have
residency,
to,
or whatever. They was able to get some utilities or something on and get mail there by that time.
I'm gonna be honest
Yeah.
with you. I
But that's
just,
still a good sales pitch that Marlon just did there, because it's the same way, like, I purchase properties knowing that I would have to quiet the title. But if I'm like, okay, well, we have a whole rehab process. It's going to take this long. If I go ahead and get my attorney in place now, by the time we're done and ready to hit the market, this is going to, situation more than likely is going to be resolved.
Yes. A lot of people have me, because we're going to have to evict them 9 times out of 10.
Right.
I'm going to, like, if in that situation where the owner just completely let it go and they knew it was a squatter in there, I was like,
Right.
whatever, we're going to have to evict them because we don't know how long they've been there.
Right.
I can't go there and be like, oh, yeah, you got to go, bucko. You know, and they be like,
Right.
I've been here for 3 years. Like, you know,
Right.
like what?
Right.
So, yeah, that's going to be an eviction. I tell the buyers, when people come to me and they want to buy the property,
Right.
buy it because they can't stop me from getting in it. Remember,
Yeah.
I taught you that.
Right.
They can't stop me from getting in it. Buy
Right.
it with confidence. And let's start the process now because it's already so extensive. We already got to wait 30 days to even file the summons and complaint. So
Right.
I'll serve them, and then by the time it's time for court, you'll be the owner. You'll be good to go. We already, you saved a good 2 months.
All right. There we go.
All right. So I would like to say that we are not attorneys. We do not give legal advice. This show is based on our opinions and experiences.
Correct.
And call Marlon.
And call Marlon. Like, follow, subscribe.
Hold on. You got to find out where to
And
find out.
I'm getting to it.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. I mean, because over there got you. You know what? Praise the Lord.
Yes.
Where can we find you?
I'm on majority of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Marlon Davis, Kingston Property Advisors. Nowadays, if you just search it, will pop up. It'll pop up.
Praise the Lord.
You on MySpace?
It's been a good 15 years since I did MySpace.
15 years? You was like
been
2.
a minute. No, I was like 15 when MySpace was like a thing. I'm 30 this year, so it's been a while.
Oh,
It's been a while.
Me
It
too.
was like 2. It's like, no, I'm just playing. Okay, that's a wrap, y'all.
Monday, Monday, Monday.